What's good, people? What's good? What's good? All right, about to randomly relate reverse rant, no hate. All right, so let me jump right into this. A couple of things I want to talk about. One thing is this: I sat down again and I rewatched Adrien Broner versus Paulie Malignaggi, and watching that fight, you always, it's not the first time I watched it since then. I mean, I watched it already several times, but I like to refresh my mind so when I do say something, I don't want to say too much about the two of them, other than just the fight itself. Um, on Paulie Malignaggi's behalf, now mind you, the fight ended as a split decision. Okay, I think Paulie Malignaggi, what even got him the split decision, and what people really didn't, think about too much, he threw body shots all night long, every round. And every single round, he was consistent with just constantly. He was mixing up head and body. He missed most of his punches, and even the body shots, a lot of them he missed, but a lot was connected. But he also, okay, in throwing his shots, he was just busy, 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 and I think that that was part of his plan. Was like, I want to outwork him. So even if I'm not landing, I'm busier. So maybe the judges will look at that. Okay, and I don't think he got enough credit from the fans for his body work because he was constantly throwing to the body. He was trying to win. It's not like he was just in there. He was trying to win. Now, Paulie has brittle hands, and even without brittle hands, his punching power is just like non-existent. He just has no punching power, man. That's no secret. We always knew that was his Achilles heel. Okay, just having brittle hands just makes it that much worse. Now, I think he clearly lost the fight, but I did think he did a good job of being busy and he was throwing shots. It's not like he was just standing there. Adrien Broner, on his behalf, Adrien was landing clean shots, power shots. He just kept constantly snapping Paulie's head back. And his, you know, we've seen Adrien dominate people up until that point where, Adrien was that guy at the time. He's up and coming, and people really wanted to see him. Let's see him do that. Let's see him get to the top of that mountain. Now, what ended up happening in that fight was um, Adrien was getting a reaction from the crowd every time he landed a shot. Every time he did, and he was clearly snapping his head back. And of course, I don't feel like it was a robbery. I think the right man won, got the decision. Adrien Broner clearly won that fight, but it was competitive from the standpoint of Paulie was staying busy and trying to just keep something going and trying to, doing the best that he could do. But on the other hand, with Broner, most of us expected him to steamroll through Paulie the way Sean Porter did. We that's how we imagined that fight because we've seen Adrien beat the brakes off of other fighters. And the fact that he got snapping and shot and have, he was sharp that night, man. Um, that's the fight when I looked at Adrien and I'm thinking, man, he's boxing Paulie, but he's boxing Paulie very carefully. And Paulie can't punch. So what happens when you move up? They asked him, like, do you have any concerns about Paulie being the bigger man? And Adrien said, what's weight? Plain and simple, what's weight? And if you're fighting that cautiously against a guy who can't punch with your hand speed and power, what are you going to do against a guy that comes and put pressure on you? What are you going to do against a guy that can punch? And when I looked at that and I saw him, when I realized he was fighting Marcos Maidana next, I remember saying, I don't think this is good for Adrien Broner. And people was, how you going to wax him? And people who saw Devin Alexander beat Marcos Maidana, I think they felt like, man, like they just brushed him off like he was just a warm-up for a bigger and better fight. And I'm like, you guys are sleeping on Marcos Maidana. And Devin Alexander is no slouch, but Devin Alexander, he's a solid fighter. He has heart, but, styles do make fights. And yeah, That aggression that you used to seeing Marcos Maidana have, he didn't have that against Devin. Now, a person can fight with the wrong strategy. They can fight and beat themselves in the fight as well. Make it easier for the opponent. But I remember just watching that fight and I'm thinking, man, that doesn't look good on Adrian's behalf. He won, but I felt like he should have been far more dominant than what he was. So for people who didn't understand me when I was saying that, they understood the words I was saying. But when he fought Maidana, every one of those people that was like, I don't see how you think Maidana gonna win, they said, I see your point now. Yeah, you have no choice but to see my point. That's the whole thing. You're fighting a guy that you say can't punch. You know he can't punch. But you fight him extremely cautious to the point where you're landing shots, but you never just opened up on him and tried to get him out of there. It was just box, pop, shot, pop, move, snapping. And Adrien was sharp and he won the fight. That's what matters. But it's the way that he won he outpointed him. He got the win. But that's one fight where if any night he should have been really dominant, it should have been that night. And Adrien Broner, after watching, if you watch that fight and you see him now, he's clearly not the same fighter. He is clearly not the same fighter. So I saw, I didn't watch the video, but a video that was titled that Adrien Broner is demanding $10 million from Showtime for him to come back and fight. And I don't think Adrien, I don't know what his financial status is. None of my concern, my business. If anything, I hope he's doing fine. But I don't think Adrien realizes that his name doesn't hold weight like it used to. And I'm not saying people won't come to see him fight, but there's no big demand for Adrien Broner's name. It's not like Showtime has their back against the wall. Adrien, we need you. You lost your last fight, man. And you lose all your big fights. So, for someone to have a demand for you, for what? No. If they gave him the $10 million, hey, so be it. I'm not knocking him for that. But I think Adrien Broner has wasted a lot of good prime years, man, just not being active enough. And he's always talking about retiring, and then he winds up talking about coming back. And I think he wasted a lot of time. He's 30, 31 now. Like Paulie told him, it doesn't last forever, man. When I watch that, it's just like, when you think about it, I would feel like, I don't see how he can't be disappointed in himself. The people around him that care for him should feel some disappointment and be real with him. I don't know what their conversations are like, but you cannot possibly have the talent that guy had at one point and not realize I'm not the same fighter that I used to be. And you make you go up to 147, you want to come back down to 140. What are you doing? Are you going back up? Are you standing at 140? What are we doing? You went up, you fought Pacquiao, and the thing about it is, even when he said, after watching him and Keith Thurman, Pacquiao and Keith Thurman, he feels better about his win. What does that have to do with you? What happened between Keith and Manny? And he always talked real confident. Broner's always talking about what he's gonna do. He's coming back. He's on stage, jumping around, shadow boxing, constantly dancing around, chewing his gum, shaking his head as if, man, I'm gonna do this and that to you. And then he lose the big ones. And when you do that, it's hard for people to get behind you, man, because we've heard this already before. And I've spoken about Adrien Broner's situation before because we want to see him win. We want to see him find that hunger and that maturity to understand, look, you win fights by training your ass off and getting back in the gym, man. All of this jumping on Instagram Live and just bullshitting around, and hey, he's living his life. Whatever he wants to do, that's on him. But when you lose fights and then your key fights, your big fights, and then you come back and fight some meatball, maybe look decent, look good, and then get back in there with another elite guy and then get crushed again. And it's like, at some point, people are just going to say, you know what? Because the worst thing that could happen to Adrien Broner is that Adrien Broner jumps in that ring and it's not even a top-tier guy. And then not only does he lose, but he gets knocked the fuck out. Like he gets knocked out, gets brutally. If that happens to him, you can put a nail in his coffin. And I don't want to see that happen to him. You know, whoever Adrien fights, I want to see Adrien win, man. But Adrien, I don't know, man. It's like he just doesn't get it. You know, and with this coronavirus going on, yeah, this is more time to think about things, more time, you know, to just, hey, I mean, prepare yourself mentally. You know, do something to keep yourself in shape. But at the same time, it's like you don't have all the time in the world, man. And when you constantly spend time out the ring like that, it takes its toll on you. And skill-wise, you just start losing things. So where does Adrien go from here? We don't know. But it was just interesting when I watched that fight, man, because to me, that was Adrien's last hurrah, where he had a fight and the crowd is just responding to everything that he's doing. And he really, you know, like I said, he clearly won that fight, man. There's no question that he won. But, you know, like I said, we expected him to dominate Paulie. And, you know, he outboxed him, outclassed him, he outquicked him. He just did everything better than Paulie. But it was like, it was not like he just dominated, did something like had us just, oh, you know, Paulie never looked hurt by anything either. You know, got rocked a couple of times, but he never looked like in danger of going down, or like, you know, he was in there mocking and putting his hands behind his back, doing a little silly shit to show him, man, I'm right here, I'm still here. But it's like, you know, just watching it, you really just look at Adrien, and you see it. Like, the guy was talented, man. Like, he's not the same fighter. Not to knock Mikey Garcia, but you went there and you struggled and lost to Mikey, and then said Mikey wanted to run all night. He didn't want to fight, but you were the one fighting on the back foot the whole night. I don't even remember a round where Mikey was backing up from him. Mikey kept coming to him. But at the end of the day, it's your job as a fighter to learn how to cut off the ring, put pressure on when you need to. You fight a boxer, you box a fighter. You do what you have to do to win. And when you don't have that mind to play chess, I mean, making excuses doesn't change anything. Every fight that I saw Adrien Broner lose, he legitimately lost. There was no robbery. He lost. Adrien needs to understand that. It's no different from us, any fighter that says, you know, I won the fight, or you know, I don't see this guy as a champion, or, I mean, but you lost. You know, there's just a lot that I think Adrien is missing out on mentally. And I think that's his weakness, is his mind. So, anyway, just reflecting on that fight, and it just kind of stood out to me. I just felt like talking about it. So, that's all I want to say on this video. And I'll catch y'all on the next one.